will find a way to dry our every tear. We will find a way.
Hello, everyone. Are you ready for day whatever it is of the challenge to fear-free living? I have been gone longer than I thought I would. Let's see who's with me today. Hi, Frank, Pam. Hi, Night Blues, whoever you are. I'm gonna get some sunshine. You, man. Amy Graff, it's good to see you guys. I'll let a few more people come in and then we'll get right to it.
Hand in hand, we explore a vast new land where mountain wings rise to meet the sun. Day by day, climbing higher on our way, we'll touch the sky together when we're done. And there we will stand on the rock of our love, blessed with a sure and ever after. We'll find a way, find a way. We will find a way. We'll stand and view the land of our dreams. We will find a way. Together you and I will find a way. We will find a way.
Hello, everyone. I'm welcoming myself back to broadcaster land and building some fresh momentum. For those of you who are new, this is Fear-Free Living. Fear-Free Living is not an option. Fear-Free Living is a life skill that has to be taught and practiced and lived out, because the command to be without fear is God's command to us because of the provision for us to actually live in a fear-free state. And so I do a lot of teaching and a lot of mentoring on that subject, related to the brain, related to healing of emotions, related to habits, choices, and the renewal of the whole person, the power and authority we have in Christ, and the practicality of what happens when you choose to live fear-free, when you choose to understand the messages that fear is telling you. And I'm in the middle of a massive transformation of my own into a whole new season, and that's probably was punctuated by the events, the recent events. I took Friday off to fly back from my current location in Florida back to my home state for a very important and strategic effort to push back serious darkness in my community. And knowing that it would be quite the endeavor, part of a team, part of an incredible group of people doing things that we have never seen before in our region. And so I knew it would be intense. I started my challenge. Hello, honey. That's my husband right there. I started my challenge doing the Curry Blake affirmations and declarations, proclamations, going into this event knowing that it would be really good to bulk up on my mind transformation and also strengthening my spirit. And so I was already working on that. I was already doing things to be as specific as I could in managing stress and so forth. And there was a lot of progress made. Anyway, stepped into this situation, and for one reason or another, and I don't really want to go into a whole lot of detail about it because I don't think it's even worth the energy, but I stepped into a level of pushback and opposition that affected me physically for various reasons. So I actually have been out and down from the broadcasting world because I had to recoup. And I had to actually go into the hospital for a couple of days. Now, that was super interesting. And what I want to talk to you about is what I learned there. A couple of key things that I learned there. First of all, one of the things that I had to determine immediately when I realized that whatever was happening as I discerned it, in the midst of the battle, in the midst of not being afraid, but having effects of battle, having effects of stress and experience, you can actually experience those things and still not be afraid, okay? Which was a beautiful thing for me, because there would have been a time when I would have experienced the wear and tear of battle out of a fearful mindset. That would have added a whole other level to what was going on. Discomfort, dislike, annoyance, frustration, anger, these kind of things. Inconvenience. I would say that probably the biggest and most egregious of the fallout from being in high-level warfare was the freaking inconvenience of somebody trying to get in my way. And that wound up being annoying and inconveniencing more than terrorizing, traumatizing, upsetting, sickening, all of those things. So to me, no matter what happened, I actually emerged so much more strong because I faced opponents and adversaries in the spirit and in the natural who were bringing what they thought was their A game. But God's A game was superior to that. But because of humanity and life being sloppy as it is life not sloppy? There will be things that are human and that require time, that can waylay you, that can discourage you, that can come in and messing up where you think you need to be. And I think I'm going to learn also about how to, hey Iceman, about how to partner with the angels a little better moving forward into different settings. But in the end, I determined that whatever it cost me to have done my work, I was going to turn around and learn how to make my opponents and my enemies pay dearly for even trying it, even messing with it, even doing that. It's like when you have your kid and your kid decides to see what mom and dad are made of. And so that you set a boundary, you say no, and they start pushing and pushing back and pushing against it. And that's the point when parents are made, when authority figures are made, when you realize, no, I'm not moving. There's pushback, there's disruption, there might be some drama, there might be inconvenience, annoyance. You might have to pull your kids out of a restaurant or out of a store. Your family might have had plans to go marching off and do something wonderful. The whole schedule gets thrown out of whack because of some kid that's decided this is the hill they want to die on, right? But that also becomes the point at which the parent says, now this will be the making of me. Because as a parent, I will learn to be unmoved. Sure, you inconvenienced me. Sure, there was some fallout. There was some drama. But this is the point where I, as a parent, learn my authority. And I learn not to budge. And I learn my principles. And I learn how I am going to govern in this household. And so I would say that perhaps that describes my experience where the thing that was so completely disruptive schedule-wise and experience-wise and so completely unexpected to me will wind up being the thing that galvanizes me to be a better and stronger authority, expression of God's authority moving forward. And I plan on making the enemy pay dearly for even taking his time to mess with me and anyone involved in that, in the spiritual realm or whatever. But so I am back and resting and recouping and readdressing the future. What does that look like? What's God's call for me? Because sometimes in the midst of a battle, in the midst of something that's dramatic and messy, like with your kids, it is not, you can maintain that authority position and you make your point. you are unmoved. But then as you and your husband lay down in bed tonight, you go, well, that was a rough one. Well, that really took a lot out of us to go toe to toe with our kids and realize we have to be unmoving and strong and unified. But you can also reassess and say, but did we skin that cat the best way? How could we have prepped into that situation so that child didn't have the same level of temptation or just invitation to kick up a rebellious feast, right? Maybe there's a better way to skin this cat. And so I think anytime we enter into something that's messy, sloppy, uncomfortable, it's physically draining or whatever it is, then we get a chance to learn how to galvanize, to regroup, and also then to become even more strategic about how we're going to move forward into those kind of settings. So I'm in all of that space right now, and looking forward to what God's going to do. But here, let me tell you something that I want to warn you about, and I believe this is going to go out to somebody somewhere who's really in this place. And I think this is going to become part of my repertoire to teach on. When you are in a medical environment and there's something going on with your body, there is also a very seducing sort of soulish thing that happens when medical terms, diagnoses, medical people begin to surround you with identity and ideas about what's happening to you. And it's when you're feeling weak, when you're feeling vulnerable, when you're not exactly sure what's shaking out. Now, I knew from the beginning, partly because of my Curry Blake challenge, right? Did you stay good on that while Mama was away? Were you doing your proclamations? I was doing them in the hospital, and I was listening to scriptures in the hospital, and I watched a lot of period dramas. I'm not going to lie. I watched a lot of, by the way, All Creatures Great and Small on PBS is lovely. Yeah, I watched that. I binge watched that while I was sitting around waiting for them to come back and do their stuff. I was not afraid, but it was disorienting, right? So I'm sitting there, but they're coming in, and they're coming in with what might have happened, what could be wrong, what tests we're going to do, why you're feeling this, what our interventions are, what this could mean going forward, how your life could change. And they give you big words, and they give you all these things to be able to define you. And if they're good at what they do, they come in with concern and compassion and love. And they this is how people who are nurses and doctors, generally they desire to be healers. And I have to say, given the absolute last place I ever wanted to be in was a hospital, because I'm so angry at the way that this whole thing has been defined and the paranoia around it. But I had such favor everywhere I went. I had such favor and freedom wherever I went in so many ways that it was kind of mind-blowing. It was like if I had to go through this process of inconvenience, annoyance, and attack, which is really what, and discomfort, I was in the midst of that with tons of favor and divine appointments and opportunities to pray for people and a chance to rest and people caring for me and reaching out. I mean, it was really, you have to be between a rock and a hard place, be there with the Lord, because he's a soft landing, and I certainly experienced that. But they come in with words and diagnoses, and I want you to be aware when you step into a medicalized environment, as useful and helpful, they certainly were helpful to me, it wants to wrap you in a warm blanket of identity. Oh, I have this. Ooh. And when you're telling your story to people, you get attention for telling your story. Ooh, it's like gossip. You guys aware of gossip? How when you know something and you have a juicy morsel about someone's character or whatever, it gives you a feeling of flesh and soulish power to have that morsel about that person, right? when you have that information, or you know something somebody else doesn't know, or you've got the secret insight. And so there's a tasty morsel. This is why gossip is so insidious, because we all just want that, and we want to be the one with to have the in on it. That same feeling is not very different from what I experienced in the hospital with the tasty morsel of a of what could have been, what could be wrong, what might get me attention, what might have placed a diagnosis on me and wrap me up in this identity of what I need. Because you see, in that environment, you get attention for being sick, you get a lot of compassion, you get a lot of a sense of, it's a strange specialness, let's put it that way, when you're in the hospital and everyone's catering to you. And then because you're trying to process things that are disorienting, and you start to text people and write. I had to delete some texts because I was texting, a little bit out of the drama. Well, pray for me because they said this could be it and that could be it, and I might have, and the test indicated, and the doctor said if it was my mother I'd want her, and this kind of thing. And I had to be very careful, and it was hard not to want to jump into the story of, okay, so first this happened to me, and then I felt the this and the bad and the awfuls, and then finally I went here, and then I got the ambulance and I did this, and they turned this siren on, and then I went here, and and every medical professional who walks into the room is going to ask you to tell your story again, and part of that is the protocols. By the way, they have to ask you your name and your birth date every 15 minutes, just to make sure you have your you're like lucid to make decisions. But by the end of that, I was really sure about my name and my birthday. I'll tell you that. And so there is a whole system designed to define how you are and what you need, and to wrap you up in a lot of attention and nurturing while it happens. And there's something about us that loves the attention and loves the microphone and the drama of what it could be and how it could be. And of course, we frame it spiritually, be like, well, just pray for me, and we try to, and I'm trusting God and this and that. But I just want you to be aware, as one of our avenues of understanding in the fear-free life, at some point we have to trim our words, and we have to be very careful the diagnoses that we accept for our lives in general. Oh, I'm a this. Oh, I have this. Oh, I've always. You never. I never. I can't. I won't. And in a medical environment, it comes with, I believe, a spirit of infirmity that wants to wrap you up in a warm blanket of subtle, sick thinking. Do you understand what I'm saying? And it's hard because there was a natural, rational reason why I needed to be where I was, and why I needed to get the care that I got and went through the process that I did. But I had to stay sharp enough based on who I was in Christ and God's view of it all, and say, you know what, I get this, and thank you so much for your care and your concern, but I had to be very intentional, and I still do, to say, whatever that is or was that I'm seeing here, that is, I'm drawing a line and saying, that is not my identity, that is not my outcome, that's not even the reality of who I am now, with divine health flowing through me. Do you get this? These are some of the little tips that I like to give in fear-free living, because we tend to think that being afraid or not being afraid is sort of just ones and zeros. You just are or you aren't. Some people aren't, some people are. The people who won the lottery in life, they just aren't scared like those of us with the chronic syndrome of you know, acute stress and this and that. And we have these things that just sort of, we just go, well, I have this, that's all it is, and that's what and part of the brain training and renewal is to learn to do the surgery and separate ourselves, the membrane of who we are and what God is releasing in us, from all of these warm and fuzzy familiar spirits and ideas. It's like self-pity. Do you guys know how great self-pity feels? And I struggled for a while, day 2.5 in the hospital waiting, there was part of me that, I started to kind of boo-hoo me a little bit, and after my 19th episode of a period drama, and there is something very intoxicating about self-pity and shame. Even darkness and shame and depression can be very worthwhile. They can serve a purpose. We can wrap ourselves up. The Lord once showed me that I literally had a place in the spirit. I don't know what you guys are doing, but you seem a little distracting. There was a place in my emotional life and perhaps in the spirit, and I took an elevator and I went down there and I opened it up. It was a little purple palace. My comfy chair, and it was kind of dark, but I had my teddy bears and my wrap and my darkness, and this is the place where I could always go to be guaranteed the warm welcome of being told, poor you, yeah, Julie, yeah, there you are, poor you, in your shame again, yes, no one, yeah, that's right, you'll never amount to much, here we are again, Julie, back to the old things, you thought you were doing so well, but you're never really going to overcome, so come back in and hang out with us, because we get you in all of your pain and weakness, and we're a safe place for you. So you just come into your purple palace, and we'll just wrap you up in this whole thing. And as strange as that is, did you know that there is a really weird part of the human soul that finds a weird pleasure in that kind of thing? A weird sick pleasure in being wrapped up in the warm arms and the warm embrace of darkness and dark thinking, because it's familiar. And it gives this sort of, come on back to us now, honey. You won't amount to much, but we got your back. You're here. And I noticed in the hospital that there was an invitation into a nice warm space of, and there was plenty of rational explanation where I could have said, well, look, the doctor just came in and gave me these results. And look what this could mean, this, and this blood test definitely said this, and that test, and this test, and blah, 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 blah. Now, there was good news too. There was lots of good news. But what I'm saying was there's enough of the other stuff that, guys, I could honestly live off of that for weeks. I could right now, like people are going, are you okay? Boy, you really need to get your rest. And I am resting. And I'm setting new boundaries right now for myself. And I'm reassessing. And I'm thinking how to better do this and what might I not want to do next time. And maybe I don't want to play in that field or take on that challenge or whatever. You bet your bottom dollar that there is recoup and rest, like after a workout, right? And you tear down the muscles and you got to build them up. Right? Restoration. You bet I'm going to do that. And I'm going to take every nap I want to take. And I'm here in Florida again, resting comfortably and quietly for a good reason. But there was another aspect I could have taken on, and you need to know this, which is the warm, cuddly, familiar demon. Demons are familiar with you, that want to call you into a familiar acquiescence to your sickness, to your defeat. Oh, come on, honey. You're so much more loved as a sick person. You get so much more attention. You don't have the same responsibility. You don't have to go out and heal the sick when you're the one who's in the hospital, do you? You tried so hard. You did such a good. Oh wow, what a warrior you are. You deserve to be the infirm one for a while. Just let us do the driving, and let's just pull you into this purple pit of this new diagnosis and this new identity. And it's very subtle, and you something in your flesh wants to resonate there because it gives you attention, and it gives you some nurture. And be careful with these things. As you become more and more free and clear, the subtleties of the battle around you will emerge. And you'll be able to say, anything that's telling me that my safe and happy place is a place of accepting sickness, infirmity, the assumption of weakness as opposed to resurrection life, even if I'm practically going to rest, okay? And anything where I'm getting my bennies and my attention and my power from less than divine health and life and God and freedom, that's a warning. That's a wake-up call. And then, you know what you can do with that when you find yourself there? You can take your own diagnostic test and say, Abba, maybe what I'm really needing is some more attention from people. Maybe I am neglecting something where I should get filled, and I should see. Like I noticed after I got through this and got out of the hospital and came down and all this stuff, and kind of offloaded some stuff, and okay, next phase, the Lord gave me a dream, and He began to unpack some things in my heart and show me that there are some things that I've left unaddressed that do need His nurture, that do need His attention, that do need my attention. But they're not the things the doctor wanted to give me. They're not the things that the poor you, attention grabbing stuff. Does this making sense to you? And so it's like the Word of God is a double-edged sword, able to go between marrow and joint. And these are the things where the ministry of the Holy Spirit helps us see, and to not take here, just smoke one of these. You know what I mean? Like the enemy's like, you just here, just take that. Just a little bit of this, and come on in the crowd. Let us just embrace you with our warm infirmity spirit and the attention that comes with that, and the self-pity and the, all these things. God has a great way for you to get good physical, emotional, and spiritual self-care, and for me too. But I just want you to be aware, as long as I had to endure the inconvenience, and my family did, and my husband did, and the upheaval, and frankly the annoyance of the fallout from battle, then we might as well learn a thing or two, right, from it. We might as well come out and go, not so fast. Next, I know enough now to know how this thing rolls. So I'm going to be even more fierce and even more threatening. So you just gave me, it's called tuition. My husband will go through a hard thing, and sometimes, generally tuition is money, right? So a lot through the years when I've done things and cost him money, or I've cost myself money, particularly with my art and music projects, or I tried something and it didn't work, or we invested and it didn't come through, he'll go, Jules, it's just tuition. It's just tuition. And it makes me always feel so much better, honey, because what do you get for tuition? You get an education, don't you? So, tuition, education, but education is supposed to amount to equipping and effectiveness, right? So, my friends, go do something that scares you on a daily basis. Today I kind of had to put it out there because I got to do some broadcasts with Lisa Perna, who actually came to see me down here, and she asked me to play guitar out of nowhere. And my voice is, I'm not in voice. I haven't been practicing. The physicality of what I went through has changed how I was singing and all that stuff. I was like, okay, well, I certainly don't like this, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to show up on her broadcast Crown Chats today, and I played live kind of out of nowhere in all my glory, all my human sloppiness to show up. Why? Because I knew another day, another risk, another stretch into what makes me uncomfortable so that I learn again the goodness of God. And you do too, right? Okay, my friends, I'm sure I'll be perseverating and processing, and I'll have even more to share with you next week. Between now and then, stay on the risk edge of the knife, because you know what? If you decide to choose your risks, you actually have more power. If you're constantly running and avoiding risks and avoiding things, they will show up at your door. There will be things that God allows to happen to provoke you, and then you're in a much less strategic and powerful position. Whereas if you say today, okay, so my paradigm is that I lose my self-protective worldview, and I pour it out. I bring the gospel. I die to self. I am out there for the sake of others. I am literally Christ to the world around me. I am doing things that involve, by the very nature of who he was, stepping outside of what I want to do, what makes me feel okay for the world around me and for his purposes. If you are engendering that mindset, then you are always knowing that your day is going to be a series of investments and risks. And so you're looking for them and you're planning them, and you get to participate in an early choice to do something that scares you on purpose because of who you are in Christ and because you're what you're called to do, as opposed to being so risk averse and self-preservational and self-protectional that you're forced into crisis over every little risk and every big risk. Don't let the enemy or even God have to provoke you into crisis over the things you do on purpose to risk. Why don't you decide to have some participatory control in that by creating a mindset that says, every day I'm going to do stuff that makes me uncomfortable, that scares me, that involves risk, that involves investment of others, that involves people seeing me more clearly for who I am and all of my strengths and weaknesses. That actually gives you a lot more empowerment than hiding away and waiting for a crisis to provoke you into a kind of risk that is much more difficult to deal with. Just a thought, okay? And so go do something that scares you, and I will see you on Monday.